Following victory in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870-71, Germany joined Russia and Austria-Hungary in an anti-French Three Emperors League in 1873. Germany's Chancellor Otto von Bismarck championed France's colonial ambitions as a means of diverting Paris from seeking revenge. Berlin therefore encouraged French troops to invade Tunis in April 1881 and forced the Bey to renounce his independence in international affairs. But Bismarck was reluctant to establish colonies in Africa. He therefore refused consular protection in January 1883 for Adolf Luderitz, a Bremen-based merchant who sent Heinrich Vogelsang to establish a trading post at Angra-Pequena, present-day Luderitz Bay, that April. Bismarck, however, made an abrupt volte-face on 19th of May 1884 by making Gustav Nachtigall, who was in Lisbon planning a West African expedition, his imperial consul general. Nachtigall hoisted Germany's flag in Togo and Cameroon in July, while Germany also declared Angra-Pequena a protectorate on the 7th of August. An international conference over the Congo River Basin began in Berlin on the 15th of November. It ended on the 26th of February 1885 with a general act that paved the way for a scramble for Africa by obliging signatories to establish coastal administrations capable of protecting commerce and to help suppressing slavery in the interior. On 3rd of March 1885, a German imperial gazette announced an imperial charter had been granted to the German East Africa Company that Karl Peters had founded. Germany also concluded a bilateral treaty with Britain in 1886 that limited Zanzibar's mainland claims to a 10-mile-wide coastal strip. Wilhelm II, Germany's Kaiser from 1888, dismissed Bismarck in 1890, following elections in which the Social Democrat Party recorded gains. The Kaiser also concluded a colonial agreement with Britain in July 1890 through the Treaty of Zanzibar that granted London, Uganda, in return for Berlin receiving Heligoland in the North Sea. German Southwest Africa also felt the impact of settler colonialism. The territory was sparsely populated by pastoral Nama and Herero in the south and centre, and the more densely settled Ovambo farmers in the north, as well as by scattered San and Damara hunter-gatherers. The arrival of white farmers around Windhoek led the Nama chief Hendrik Witbooi to write to other indigenous leaders in May 1890 seeking unity, but there were no takers. A German attack in April 1893 forced a Nama retreat towards the now Clift Mountains, where colonial troops targeted them on the 27th of August 1894 and forced their surrender after a 13-day battle. The discovery of gold in the Witwatersrand region of the Transvaal in February 1886 fostered scrambles for new rands. King Lobengula accepted British protection in 1888, and Cecil Rhodes, who had made his fortune in Kimberley, deployed agents that year to obtain concessions from African kings. His surrogates included Charles Rudd, who obtained mineral rights from Lobengula in October in return for financial and military aid. An Anglo-German commission settled the frontiers of German Southwest Africa in 1890. Excluded was Walvis Bay, which had been annexed by Britain in 1878 and became part of the Cape Colony in 1884. Cecil Rhodes, the Cape Colony's Prime Minister since 1890, initially supported an invasion by Leander Starr Jameson, who advanced on the 29th of December 1895 from Rhodesia, but was defeated and surrendered on the 2nd of January 1896. Kaiser Wilhelm issued a congratulatory telegram to the Transvaal's president Paul Kruger a day later on his success in defeating what became known as the Jameson Raid. White settlers in German Southwest Africa exploited Herero and Nama cattle losses during an 1896-7 rinderpest epidemic by expanding into underutilized grazing land and bartering food and clothing for livestock. The Herero rebelled on the 12th of January 1904, led by Samuel Maherero, and following defeat at the Waterberg Plateau on the 11th of August, fled into Omaheke's desert. The exasperated German commander Lothar von Trotter issued a proclamation on the 2nd of October that, quote, "Within the German borders, every Herero, with or without a gun, with or without cattle, will be shot," end quote. But Hendrik Witboi's Nama rebelled the following day. The resulting strain on imperial resources led Kaiser Wilhelm to rescind the extermination order in December and focus instead on obtaining surrenders. The Germans also faced resistance in East Africa, where inhabitants in Matumbi Hills and Kilwa's hinterland, who had long opposed efforts to cajole them into growing coffee for export, rose in July 1905. Participants believed magic water, or Maji, could immunize them against bullets, hence the Maji Maji Rebellion, which spread south of Dar es Salaam. The Southwest African rebellions, for their part, collapsed after Hendrik Witbooi died in October 1905 attacking German supply lines, while the Herero revolt was declared over by an imperial decree of the 31st of March 1907. Only 9,781 Nama and 15,130 Herero remained alive from estimated pre-war totals of 20,000 and 80,000. The Maji rebels, by contrast, never managed to achieve effective coordination, and their resistance ended in August 1907 following a German scorched earth policy. Germany faced other imperial challenges besides those of sub-Saharan Africa. Kaiser Wilhelm arrived in Tangier on the 31st of March 1905 and publicly supported independence for Morocco, whose Sultan Abdelaziz promptly demanded an international summit on his country's future. President Theodore Roosevelt of the United States of America therefore convened a conference that began in Algeciras on the 16th of January 1906, but Germany's belligerence solidified the entente of Britain and France, whose military staffs opened secret talks that month. The Algeciras talks concluded on the 7th of April with agreement on a final act offering Germany a nominal victory by reaffirming the Sultan's independence, but France would have the largest share of an international consortium charged with overseeing Morocco's finances, and the French would also administer the country's ports jointly with Spain. The French captured Fez from rebels on the 2nd of May 1911, but then held it, prompting Germany to send a gunboat to Agadir on the 1st of July. War was averted through a 4th of November deal that recognized Morocco as a French protectorate in return for Germany receiving 100 square miles of the Congo, but Berlin's gunboat diplomacy further hardened opinion against it. Germany declared war on France on 3rd of August 1914, with Britain declaring war on Germany the following day. The first clash anywhere between British and German troops occurred in Togoland in mid-August during an invasion that involved the British advancing from the Gold Coast and French forces from Dahomey. Togoland surrendered on the 26th of August 1914, while the Cameroons were invaded from the west that month. These formed part of a broader punching out against the German overseas empire. New Zealanders occupied German Samoa on the 29th of August 1914, while an Australian force occupied all of German New Guinea on the 11th of September. A South African flotilla attacked German Southwest Africa on the 18th of September 1914, but it was held up from October to early December by a pro-German rebellion of Republican Anglo-Boer War veterans. The Afrikaner rebellion died out following the surrender of the last significant rebel force on the 3rd of February 1915. South Africa thereafter focused on subjugating German Southwest Africa, which fought on but capitulated on the 9th of July. In the middle of World War I, Rwanda and Urundi, which had been part of German East Africa, were conquered by troops from the Belgian Congo. South Africa's Jan Smuts took up command of the British East African Expeditionary Force in 1916. At the time, German forces under Paul-Emile von Lettow-Vorbeck's command were in occupation of a part of British Kenya. Von Lettow's African troops were known as askaris, the Swahili word for soldiers. By March 1916, they had been driven into Tanganyika, where the British pursued them, but suffered severely from tropical illnesses and the ingenious guerrilla tactics of Lettow-Vorbeck, while the territory covered was so vast that the net could not be closed on the Germans, who were moving south of Kasama, the second most important station in northeastern Rhodesia, on the 13th of November 1918, when they were informed of the armistice in Europe. The Versailles Treaty partitioned Germany's African territories. In January 1921, Southwest Africa became a Class C mandated territory, to be administered by South Africa on the League of Nations' behalf. The League of Nations also issued mandates for the British and French spheres of Togo and Cameroon. Britain also received a League of Nations mandate to rule Tanganyika, except for Rwanda-Urundi, which came under Belgian rule, and the Kionga Triangle, which went to Portugal. Thus ended Germany's imperium in Africa.